Yeah, Excellency, our colleagues, and my dear students, welcome. Today we are hosting His Excellency Guillaume Scheurer, who is Ambassador of Switzerland to Ankara. I would like to thank him once again for accepting our invitation.
My pleasure.
His Excellency Scheurer will deliver a speech titled Foreign Policy and Public Diplomacy of Switzerland today, within the framework of the Public Diplomacy Program, a joint event of ANKASAM and Cappadocia University. When we ask what the first things that come to mind when we say Switzerland, you will say probably its neutral status. This is because Switzerland is the oldest country that has officially implemented the neutrality policy since 1815. Another one is Heidi, the little girl of the Alps, who marked our era. I don't know what about you youngsters, but we grew up with this cartoon. With her, we got to know the world famous and delicious Swiss cheeses very closely, and then we discovered their chocolates. Let's add that the Swiss have made innovations and inventions that have changed the world, and the country is home to scientists and academics with countless achievements. Switzerland, which invests heavily in innovation every year, also draws attention with its inventions that we don't know much about. One of the two countries in the world with a square flag. Switzerland also has 4 official languages and is one of the rare countries in the world with this feature. Moreover, when we think of Switzerland, we think of its indisputable place in Turkey as a friendly and peaceful country. The diplomatic relations that started in 1898 and have continued without any problems until today, and 140,000 citizens living in this country can be counted. 140 Turkish people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Turkish people living in this country can be counted among the most basic indicators of this. Without further ado, I would like to briefly mention about the short biography of Mr. Scheurer. He was born in Neuchâtel in 1963, but he's very young.
Mathematics don't lie, you know.
Yeah, but mathematics, but not statistics. Yes, right. He holds a law degree from the University of Neuchâtel and is a registered lawyer in the same canton. He joined the Federal Department of Foreign Affairs in 1992 after working in the private sector, and did his diplomatic internship in Bern, South Africa, and Geneva, where he obtained a diploma in international security policy from the Geneva Graduate Institute for High International Development Studies in 1994. That same year, he worked in the policy and research section of the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation before joining the OSCE. He was appointed deputy head of the OSCE and Partnership for Peace section in the political directorate. He was then transferred in 1998 to Vienna to the Swiss delegation to OSCE. In 2001, as first collaborator at the Swiss embassy in Tehran. Returning to the headquarters in 2005, he held the position of deputy head of the political division for human security. In 2009, he was appointed deputy ambassador at the Swiss embassy in Washington. In 2013, he returned to Vienna as deputy head of the Swiss delegation to the OSCE. In anticipation of the Swiss chairmanship of this organization in 2014. In October 2015, Mr. Scheurer was appointed ambassador to Ukraine and Moldova with residence in Kiev. From September 2019 to August 2024, he was ambassador of Switzerland in Rabat. He arrived in Ankara on August 10, 2024, and he is the ambassador designate of Switzerland in Turkey. In the Swiss Army, Mr. Scheurer is a first lieutenant of artillery. Yeah. So, as usual, our audience can ask their questions with the WhatsApp number that will be indicated on the screen, as well as our friends in the hall can ask questions by introducing themselves after the program. Please don't forget to introduce yourselves, okay, while you are asking your questions. Those who didn't have the opportunity to watch today's event, which we believe will make an important contribution to the literature, can watch it on YouTube after the program. So the floor is now given to His Excellency Scheurer.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your very kind words of introduction. The advantage of age is that your CV gets longer and longer, and sometimes a little bit more impressive than it should be. But thank you very much for raising all the different postings I had the chance and the honor to occupy. And regarding the introduction you made about Switzerland, I think I can leave because you have said basically everything, you know. But I will try nevertheless to give you a little bit more deeper information about some aspect of Switzerland and of its public diplomacy. It's my great pleasure, of course, to be here in Cappadocia, to be at the Cappadocia University. Thank you very much for the invitation. Very impressed by what I have seen already this morning and the discussion I had over lunch with the rector of the university. I really hope I will come back. I will be invited again, and I can discover even more of both the university and the programs and Cappadocia. Switzerland, you might know it or less, but so you already mentioned a few things. If I can address myself first to the audience, what would be the first words or first aspect of Switzerland you would think about when you say, or when you were asked about Switzerland? Heidi probably was not the first one for youngsters, but
Chocolate.
chocolates, okay. Chocolate is one.
Alps.
Yes, mountains. You have one example here to refresh a bit the atmosphere. Please. Sorry?
Cows.
Cows, yeah.
I know the Swiss franc.
Yes.
Currency.
The currency,
Yeah.
yes.
And Switzerland is one of the countries that will join the European Union.
Very good.
The country as well. I know that some historical background of Switzerland, by the way, like the World War I, World War II.
Yeah.
And Switzerland has always been and never captured by other nations. That's a really good.
That's another one that could take my place. But more catchy, just one name or one idea, one concept. Cheese, chocolate, Alps, mountains.
And knife.
Knives, Swiss Army knives. Exactly. Those are all I'm just impressed and surprised that nobody say Roger Federer, but maybe he's already too old for you. He's a tennis player, as you most probably know. They're all correct.
Lausanne and Montreux.
And Lausanne and Montreux, yes, certainly in Turkey, yeah, those are important concepts. So what we try to do with public diplomacy is, on the one hand, to strengthen those concepts, those images that come immediately to mind when you speak about Switzerland. It's not to think they are not important. They are traditional, they are maybe a little bit old, but they are positive aspects. Who doesn't like chocolate? Who doesn't like nice Swiss Alps or strong Swiss francs? You know, all those are good army, Swiss Army knife, always useful in so many circumstances. So on the one hand, you have to try to strengthen those concepts. The same for any country. We could go over Turkey, those are traditional images, and also the country trying to portray a more modern image. And Switzerland is the same. So we have on one hand those traditional images that we shall always mention because they are important, they are positive, and on the other hand, try to add a more complete picture about the country. Before going into all the details of public diplomacy, because I understand this is the main concern, I thought it was important to just speak very briefly about Switzerland. And please don't hesitate to interrupt me, to ask a question, to raise an objection. So feel absolutely free if professors allow. Switzerland, it's a kind of unique country, very specific because of its history, because of its diversity, because of its location, whatever. It has very specific items that you will find in other countries, certainly, but not to the same extent or with the same dimension. So we are a country, borders haven't changed since 1515, so 16th century. Middle of Europe, we have strong neighbors, Italy, Germany, France, Liechtenstein, Austria, around us. Those are friendly neighbors. It was not always the case. I mean, if we go back to history, we had wars with one or the other, and we had competitions, we had problems. It's normal between neighbors. But for a long, long time now, everything has been stabilized. But interesting, strong neighbors around Switzerland. It's a rather medium-sized country. We used to say Switzerland was small because before the end of the Cold War, the countries were less divided than they are now. And Switzerland back then was a rather small country in Europe. Now it's a middle-sized power in terms of size. In Europe, much smaller states in Europe in particular. So 41,000 square kilometers. It's roughly, I think, 15 times less than Turkey. So it's a very tiny part of Turkey. You can see the dimension. It's a very urbanized country, roughly 9 million people on a small surface, so a very high density of population that you can feel. But of course, if you are in Istanbul, in Ankara, in many Turkish cities, you feel also the density of population, so nothing new for you. We have huge, for Swiss standards, differences between the city of Zurich, for instance, with roughly 1.5, 1.3 million people. That's the biggest city in Switzerland. And a canton of Appenzell, it's the smallest canton, that have only 15,000 people. So big differences in the different elements constituting Switzerland. So 9 million people, growing quite fast, not so much because of birth rate that would go up, but mainly because of immigration. Switzerland is also a country very open to foreigners. We need foreigners, we like foreigners. It was not always the case, to be also very specific, but we are very open. Roughly 1/3 of the country is foreign inhabitants. You can see different origins, a lot of course, the neighbors, Italian, Germans, and then, of course, for different reasons, Portugal and Kosovo lately have come to find jobs in Switzerland. We have triples in 1900. That's also interesting also to understand current political issues that we have in Switzerland. We used to be a country where we had not so high density, and now we have very high density. You can see that in the train during peak hours. You can see that on the highways. You can see that in different aspects of life. High population living in Switzerland. I mentioned the foreign residents. Also, we live basically in that part of Switzerland, the northern part of Switzerland. The southern part is more occupied by the Alps and high mountains, which it's not always easy to live. Life is also more difficult. So main cities will be from Geneva in the lowest left corner to Zurich, St. Gallen on the right and eastern northern corner. The political system, that's a specific aspect of Switzerland. I will go briefly over it. Federalism, this is the most important concept in Switzerland. Switzerland, although its official name, you might know it, it's Swiss Confederation, Confederatio Helvetica, therefore the CH that we have as abbreviation for Switzerland, CH, Confederatio Helvetica. So legally or officially we are a confederation, but in fact we are not really a confederation. So always be careful when you study international relations. Labels, political labels are not always accurate, and that's important in many countries where you have some kind of dispute or war regarding also the way and the degree, the importance of decentralization. So we are a federal state. We are composed of 26 cantons, and even 6 cantons are cantons. So I don't go into too many details because otherwise I will lose you. But what is important is federalism, 26 cantons composing Switzerland. Those 26 in rights, in obligation, they have their own constitution, they have their own parliament, they have their own executive, they can choose a lot of things. Of course, the constitution has to respect the federal constitution. We have one federal constitution, but otherwise the cantons are the basis of Switzerland. And the federalism in Switzerland is a bottom-up federalism. It means that the competencies are at the lowest level, and they go to the federal level only if a majority of the people and the majority of the cantons agree to do so. The opposite of a state that would have a unitary state that would have all the competences for itself, and then might agree to give a little bit of competences down to a province, to a city, or whatever. So it's just the opposite. If there is if a competence is not clear, we assume it is at the lowest level, meaning the canton, and it can be given to the federal states. Why do we have this system of federalism in Switzerland? It's mainly because of historical reasons. Switzerland started basically in 1291. So we are both a rather old nation, 1291, but we became a modern state only in 1848. So it's not that old. But 1291 is, of course, much older. But 1291, 3 cantons, they were not called cantons back then, 3 regions belonging to the Habsburg Empire decided to make a defense, a military coalition to fight against the occupant, the Habsburg Austrian Empire. And this was the start of the Swiss Confederation and the federal state. And then, over the next centuries, other region, cantons, decided to, this confederation, this association is interesting, let's join them. And then we grow from a very tiny 3 cantons to the modern states. So all those borders that you see are the borders between the cantons. We have this diversity of cantons. We have, of course, the diversity of languages. As it was mentioned, we have 4 national languages: the German, which is the majority of the Swiss citizens, around 65% of the population. Then we have on the west side, we have the French part of Switzerland, roughly a little less than a quarter. And then a very important for us minority, the Italian minority, it's only 8%. And then, of course, the Rheto-Roman, which is 0.5%, so very small number of people. But that's the beauty in Switzerland, is that we have a tendency to, if I may say so, to overprotect the minority. Because we strongly believe that democracy is important. And of course, the democracy is that the majority has right and win the election or can direct a country, lead a country, but we shall preserve the identity of the minorities. Be it the French, and as you can hear, I'm from the French part of Switzerland, despite my name, but also the Italian and the Rhoto-Romanish. And what is also important is this overprotection of minority is, as in a family or as in any kind of society that would like to keep its unity, you have to take care of the weakest or the smallest, because otherwise the unity will collapse. And like in a chain, you take care of the weakest element of the chain, otherwise the whole chain will open. So federalism, 26 cantons. And what is also very important in Switzerland and quite unique is direct democracy. Direct democracy, it's not exclusive to Switzerland. Many countries have direct democracy. Turkey has direct democracy when you elect president, parliament, and so on. What is unique in Switzerland is the element of direct democracy via, and I will come back to that, referendum and popular initiative, where really the people are on a regular basis asked their votes, their decision on important political decisions. That's the rest is normal. But direct democracy in terms of popular democracy is popular initiative and referendum. What do we mean by that? Is that with those two instruments, every 3 months, we go on Saturday, Sundays to vote. We have a series of decisions, votes, where we ask the yes or no to the people. And I would like to give you a few examples of recent initiatives or referendum we have been voting upon. Some might sound silly, some are very important, some are very strategic, but they're all of equal importance and they all go to the people. So every 3 months, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions asked that require, and I will also come back to that, a lot of information by the political parties, and also an active decision by the citizens to get informed in case they would like to vote, because you don't go to vote without knowing. So what we had recently was a popular initiative about the highway expansion. Some people wanted to have more highways in Switzerland, so they made a popular initiative. It was rejected by the people. Some people also thought our social welfare is good, but we need to improve it a little bit in giving, like we have usually 13 salaries every year, 12 plus 1. we need to also give 12+1 pension to the people, to the elderly people, because before they had only 12. And this was accepted. Some people thought, okay, that's nice, but we need to increase the age of retirement. It's, for the time being, it's 65. They said, let's start with 66, and then we, depending on the life expectancy, we might increase up to 70. This was rejected. People said, no, we don't want to work so late. We had also a popular initiative about adding 1 week vacation or 2 weeks vacation. This was, strangely enough, rejected. And why? You would think they are crazy. I mean, if we are offered to say yes to more vacation, would you say no? But the people, everybody would say yes to more vacation, at least I would. But in that case, the people said, okay, you know, Switzerland is a rather rich country, but at first we are a poor country. We have no matière première, and therefore we need to create a lot of added value in Switzerland. So to keep our economic edge, we need to work. And if we have too many vacations, new foreign investment will not come to Switzerland, or some companies might say, okay, it's impossible to keep a company in Switzerland. We need maybe to invest in France or in Turkey or in India. And therefore the people say, oh, maybe too many vacations is not so good. After all, we want to keep jobs in Switzerland, and therefore the people say no. So it means also that the information campaign, how to vote, why are the reasons, what are the negative aspects, are very important, and citizens need actively to get the information. Popular initiative. Anyone can decide, okay, now, like vacation, I take this example. We need more vacation. I will organize myself with friends, with political parties, with associations, civil society, whatever. I will find 100 signatures, meaning 100,000 citizens willing to support my idea. And that's rather easy in a country of 9 million people, of course, 18 and plus, but still around 5.1 million voters. It's rather easy to find 100,000 signatures. And you have 18 months to do that, so it's a long time. So it's rather easy to put a question to the people, and after the parliament do its job and put the question to the people. So those are popular initiatives. They are quite often quite popular. The other one is referendum. The parliament, the people you have elected, take a decision. But maybe, you know, okay, you are not very happy with the decision. It's your member of parliament that has voted yes, but on that topic, you might disagree with him or her. And then you can say, no, this law, I really don't like it. And here the parliament has adopted, finalized the law. Before it is implemented, there's a period of time for a referendum. It's open for referendum. Here, it's only 50,000 people, but the delay, the time is shorter. It's, I should know, 3 months, I think, 100 days to collect those 50,000 signatures. So we vote very often upon a draft law that has been adopted by the parliament, but some people think it's a bad law, and we vote about that. So those are the two quite unique elements of direct democracy. They have, of course, effects. Any political activity develops an action and a reaction. We are very attached to this capacity for every single citizen to express your feeling, your vote, your acceptance or refusal. So it's really something important for us. It has also the impact to increase the trust between the citizens and institutions. There's a dialogue, there's always contact. It means also, because especially the referendum has this guillotine capacity, that the members of parliament, they have to integrate this Damocles sword, this capacity for the people to say no, into the deliberations. They know they don't have all the power. They need to feel a little bit the pulse of the population. It's create also much more ownership, because you know that you have a say, even if your vote has not been in the majority, nevertheless you have been able to express your opinion. Therefore, it is as well important. So those are quite unique, but not, yes?
We are talking about cantons parliament, right?
No, federal. Federal parliament, yes. I speak only about the federal system.
We are not talking about cantons.
No, but the same will apply at the cantonal level.
Okay.
For cantonal issues. They have, in some, it might be different, but usually they have the same system. But every canton is free, again, is independent, can decide what kind of system is convenient, as long as it's a democratic system. But here I speak only about the federal parliament, federal initiative. If we speak about the parliament, the federal national parliament, we have two chambers of equal importance. The National Council and the Council of States. One, as you can imagine, represents the citizens, those 9 million people. The other one, and this is according to the proportionate to the population. For instance, Zurich, or Bern, which are among the most populated cantons, they have roughly 32 members of parliament. My canton, Neuchâtel, it's a rather small canton, has only 4. This is according to the size of the population. The other one, 46, it's according to the cantons. Each canton has 2, except those semi-cantons that I mentioned, those 6 demi-cantons, they have only 1. But because they are in the same region, they are like Basel. The city of Basel is 1 canton, and then you have the other half canton, which is the intergrund, the interland, Basel land. The campaign of Basel, it's half a canton. Anyway, it's a bit technical, but 46 members, equal rights to the National Council. And here you can see something very similar in the USA. The House and the Senate, same system, a very similar system.
Did they copy from Switzerland?
The direction, I leave it open, but the two countries, USA and Switzerland, although very different, were once called the sister republics, because they had very similar fundamental issues regarding the constitutions, in particular regarding the composition of the parliament. The government, we spoke about the parliament a little bit. The government, we have a very small government in Switzerland, 7 ministers. And one of them is the president of the government. Here you see 8 people. if I may, this person is always on the official picture, but is not a member of the government, is the federal chancellor, is organizing the meetings of the 7. He might advise, but is not in the executive power. But from here to there, those are the 7 members of the government. They each are both minister, for instance, of finance or defense or foreign affairs. And at the same time, and that's something specific in Switzerland, they are both a minister, leading a ministry, but they're also part of the government. And every decision of the government is taken by those 7 people. 7, it's easy because then you always have a majority somehow. And one of them, for 1 year, is elected by the parliament. By the way, they are all elected by the parliament. So we don't elect, we don't elect our governments. But one of them, the lady on your left, is the president for 1 year of the government. The idea is not to give too much power to one person. In Switzerland, this is important. We think that the power has to be shared, has to be distributed, and not centralized to one single person. But collectively, they take all the decisions. And that's also an impact on how you lead your ministry, because Minister of Finance, she has to organize the finance, the budget. It's a heavy job, but at the same time, she has to think as well about foreign policy, about defense, about roads, about education, about agriculture, because she's voting every Wednesday. She will also vote on the other topics of the other ministers. So it's a double job, at least. So this is our system in Switzerland. Federal state, direct democracy, parliament, 2 chambers of equal importance, representing very well this federal state, where the cantons are very important, and the government, a rather lean government, only 7 ministers. It's probably the smallest government in the world. Regarding Switzerland's system, I hope I'm not too long, but do you have any question regarding Switzerland? Might come later. Now, public diplomacy. What is public diplomacy? You have been studying that a little bit. It's nothing completely new, but it's not that old either. Before, diplomacy was secret. It was between government to government or between prince and princess. So it was something that nobody knew so much about, and we were not trying to interact with the civil society, the people of a given country. But diplomacy is very old. Some say it's probably one of the oldest jobs in the world, but it was rather secret between personalities, kings, queens, the Pope, all those important figures in Europe in the Middle Age and Renaissance. And then it became something between governments with more official embassies, a bit more visibility, Vienna Convention, all those international agreements giving a framework. But it was really something a little bit more inward-looking, writing report, going to the ministries, trying to understand the position of the country. And then slowly, embassies, ministries have opened up to this concept of public diplomacy. Before, even it was named public diplomacy, I'm sure many of my predecessors have done public diplomacy, but not knowingly. But now it's a modern concept, public diplomacy. There are so many definitions, but here just a few examples. Citizens diplomacy, why not? People's diplomacy. For me, it's more a way for an embassy, a government, to communicate directly with the citizens of the country you are working in, with foreign publics. This event, for me, it's a public diplomacy event. What we are trying to do in these moments is to communicate a little bit what are the values, what are the principles, the interests of Switzerland, in my case, in Turkey or in the world, by addressing you directly as leaders, future leaders of Turkey, having interaction with your ecosystem here in the region and in Turkey. So this is the very broad definition. What are we as a country? We are more than chocolate or Swiss Army knife or nice landscapes. What are we trying to do? It was also mentioned a little bit, we are a neutral country. We have a strong economy, strong currency. We are very in the innovation. It was also mentioned. We have a very strong humanitarian tradition. The Geneva Conventions are called Geneva not by accident. We have this tradition of hosting, Lausanne and Montreux conventions were mentioned, of hosting big conferences because of our neutrality, but also because we have a tradition of diplomacy, of good offices, how to deal with these big conferences. We have a global understanding. Switzerland is probably one of the most global countries in the world because we need to export, we need to reach out to others in order to be successful. So we have a good command of global understanding. Also because the Geneva is hosting the UN headquarters for Europe in Geneva, which has in fact more meetings, more organization than New York. And Geneva is an amazing place for international relations because I will stop just 2 minutes to ask the two ladies to stop speaking. Sorry to make that live, but it's just a little bit annoying to try to focus on something when two people are speaking about something maybe else. Thank you very much for your understanding. This is also part of public diplomacy, is to say the truth, because it's important to be direct, to be honest, to represent the value you represent, and listening is an important value in Switzerland. Thank you very much. International law is an important element, and innovation and competitiveness. So those are the broad elements we try to portray when we speak about Switzerland, when we do events in a given country. For instance, right now there is the International Expo Osaka. You know this system of international exhibition. It moves every 3 or 4 years from one country to another one. The current one is in Osaka. It's a great opportunity for a country to portray what are your principles, what are your strengths. And what we have been trying in Osaka is to be, of course, into the innovation regarding human life, regarding the environment, regarding the technique and technologies. The Swiss pavilion, every country has a pavilion, is also a kind of visit card, where you try to portray the main elements of your country. So these big structures, it's quite big. I've seen that on TV. It's very, very modern, very innovative, very sustainable. The weight of this whole structure is 450 kilos. It's solid. It's only 1% of a normal weight for such a structure in a normal construction. But resistant to earthquake, CO2 neutral, very light. So that's also something where you try to showcase what you are good at, and we are very good in modern technologies, modern construction. So that's one element of public diplomacy. It is done by the foreign ministry, of course, together with many, many partners, but is organized by the foreign ministry as a very good example of public diplomacy. Another element is the tech diplomacy. Tech diplomacy, in particular the Las Vegas show, this Tech Expo, it's the highest, most visited show in the world regarding new technologies. And Switzerland has decided already a few years ago to go there. Again, foreign ministry. We don't leave that to maybe Minister of Education. It's a part of the public diplomacy. It belongs to the foreign ministry, but of course we collaborate with everybody else in Switzerland, the universities, the special institutes, the private business, very important. And we have a Swiss house, basically, or a Swiss corner at Las Vegas, and that's very useful for Switzerland to showcase again what are your strengths, but also for the private companies, in particular the startups, to occupy free of charge, basically, a location where they can expose, explain their idea, their innovation to all the world and possible investors. So this is a great capacity. And here you see Présence Switzerland is our office dealing with public diplomacy. SwissNext is the office dealing with new technologies in the Ministry of Education. Switzerland Global Enterprise is an office in Zurich dealing with startups and exports for Swiss companies. So it's by showing unity in our diversity, the public sector, the private sector, the diplomacy, the schools, the education, that we obtain the best results. So that's the tech diplomacy, tech public diplomacy. We have also the sport diplomacy, Olympic Games, football, the Mundial. Next 2 weeks' time, start the Euro for the women football in Switzerland. Those are excellent examples. Olympic Games. This is an example in Paris, where we create a Swiss house within. In that case, in Paris, it was in the garden of the embassy. We have a big garden in the center of Paris, and we have a Swiss house that enabled to, again, showcase Swiss diplomacy, Swiss talents, Swiss innovation in sport, in sport linked with technologies. It's enabled us also to celebrate all the medals, which is always nice. Good party. Tourism, very important, because you attract the whole world at Olympic Games. And this is free. This is open. People from any country can go and visit, eat a raclette or a fondue or whatever they like. And there, it's very good for the tourism, promotion of tourism in Switzerland. Gastronomy, Swiss cheese were mentioned. So that's sport diplomacy. Now, if I go at the national bilateral level, it's in Turkey. What I'm trying to do is also one part of my job is to do public diplomacy. This year, 2025, we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Treaty of Friendship between Turkey and Switzerland. And here you have to develop a concept a little bit. What do you want to show, to explain, to tell to the Turkish people, but also to the Swiss people, because it's both ways, it's bilateral. So in that case, a nice logo with the two flags, not square this time, and the logo 100 years of friendship. It's logical, but then what we put, innovative then, now and tomorrow. Why innovative then? Because in 1925, it was probably not very easy for Switzerland and for Turkey to imagine that we could sign a treaty of friendship. Turkey was a very young republic. Switzerland was a bit more established, but still. And then we had a lot of collaboration. As I mentioned during lunch, we had a Swiss architect, Mr. Egeli, being very active in Ankara upon the order of President Atatürk to build this new Ankara together with other architects from Austria, from Germany. But Mr. Egeli, the Swiss architect, was very active in Ankara, and he brought a lot of innovation with him. So a lot of the farm that President Atatürk wanted to develop, to modernize the Turkish agriculture, was designed and built by Mr. Egeli, for instance. Ankara University, other examples of very strong innovation corresponding to the vision developed by President Atatürk. So we were already into innovation. We are even more in the innovation now and hopefully as well in the future. So the idea was to celebrate this treaty of friendship. Why? We have the shared value, democracy, for instance, but also peace with the neighbors, good governance. So we share a lot of common values. We like also diplomacy, and we are both countries in favor of regional stability. We had an important role, even if sometimes passive, because we are very proud to have been hosting the Lausanne Treaty and the Montreux Treaty. And we have ongoing collaboration in the UN, but for instance, an OSCE was mentioned in the multilateral organization. Switzerland will take over the chairmanship of this organization next year. The Secretary General of the OSCE is a Turkish diplomat, so we will, of course, work together very closely. Innovation is central. In Switzerland, it is absolutely important. It's done top-down by the state, but also bottom-up by the universities, by the ecosystem of Switzerland. I will give you some numbers if I find them again, but what is important is that a big part of our GDP is going into R&D, research and development. To give you another number that is very impressive, and it is Switzerland for now 13 consecutive years has been the most innovative country in the world. So 13 consecutive years, the most innovative country in the world. And that's quite an achievement because it's easy to be innovative one morning, you wake up with a good idea and that's it. But to do that for 13 consecutive years, this is quite an achievement. And so we have very good academy, very good schools, very good universities, very good institutes for technologies, and one of them is the Geneva Science and Diplomacy Anticipator. This sounds a little bit complicated, but it's also part of this public diplomacy that I mentioned. This is an organization where there are different members, states, based in Geneva, and the idea is to create a bridge between science and diplomacy and governance. By that, and I invite you to visit the website of GESDA. They have in particular one instrument, it's called the radar. And the radar, basically, it's thousands of scientists in the world that are part of this GESDA. So you have the member states, but you have also all the scientific base. And those are science professors. And they try to identify topics that will be relevant in 5, in 10, in 25 years, and might impact you directly. You know, the WWW was invented in Geneva at the CERN. It's one of these organizations that is very active and not known by so many people. But again, CERN is important. Turkey is a member of CERN. And WWW Internet basically was invented in Geneva. But at that time, the government was surprised. What to do with that? How does it work? How can we maybe monitor him? How can we also prevent that it creates problems, that it doesn't go into the wrong hands, that everybody can have access to it? There are a lot of questions linked with science and innovation. Good questions, less good questions. But it's important to identify what will come to us. AI. How we are going to deal with AI? We should already know now. So it's always a race, basically, between the framework, some kind of legal framework, and the inventions. So this is trying to anticipate this. For instance, quantic computing. The country that will develop first this quantic computing will have such an advantage because it will make every computer completely obsolete. They will be so slow as before we were writing by hands with stone and graving the stones. So quantic computing will be like 1,000 years of invention in one day, one moment. How can we be sure that everybody can have access to this quantic computing? So there are many, many questions linked to science and innovation. And this GESDA, Geneva Science and Diplomacy Anticipator, is trying to look at all those issues and try to imagine possible answers and possible co-responsibility on how those innovation will impact us. Here, very important for me is that there is a collaboration with Turkey, Sabancı University and GESDA will make an event together. It's part of this 100 years of innovation, friendship treaty, friends, in October. Very quickly at the end, because it's part also of public diplomacy, one of the strengths of Switzerland is its economic, it's its private sector, the Swiss companies, you know probably many of them, the big multilateral companies like Nestle, but I don't want to make any advertisement now, but you know the big Swiss companies, they are very famous in the world. And they are very active in Turkey. Many of them are active in Turkey. They have even become Turkish companies. After one company has been in Turkey for over 125 years. So they have, for instance, this company I mentioned, or I make allusion to, has roughly 4,000 employees in Turkey. Only one is Swiss. Only one is Swiss. 3,999 are Turkish. So this has become a Turkish company. In Turkey, the same in other countries, but it's still a Swiss company with Swiss values, with Swiss shareholders and so on. We are an important foreign direct investor, despite being rather small. In terms of economy, in terms of business, we are among the big players. So we are the 6th largest direct investor in Turkey. We, the Swiss companies. More than 150 companies are active in Turkey, some of them for more than 125 years. Recently, I was celebrating the 75th anniversary of a Swiss company active in Turkey. We create roughly 21,000 jobs, and we hopefully will continue to grow in Turkey. Those are some of the, not all of them, you recognize also Turkish company, but some, here you see some of the big Swiss companies that are our sponsors, because public diplomacy, that's an element also I wanted to underline, needs money. And it's money, it's both given by the government, but it's also money you have to find both as a ministry for those big events I mentioned, Osaka, Olympic Games, Los Angeles or Las Vegas, but also at the level of an embassy, you need to find money, and those sponsors agree to give a little bit of money for visibility, but also because they believe that we give a good image about Switzerland and therefore about Swiss products. By the way, it is important to underline in Switzerland that despite the fact that we have those big multinational companies, 95% of the jobs in Switzerland are created by small and medium-sized companies. So these small and medium-sized companies, they are very much the big bone of the Swiss economy, and it's companies between basically 2-3 employees to maybe 50, 100 employees, but those are those creating most of the jobs in Switzerland. And that's very healthy, because it means that despite the Swiss watches, despite the Swiss chocolate or the Swiss Army knife, we have a very diverse economy. So we are not dependent on one product only or few products. If this product collapses because technologies has changed or whatever, we have a lot of other options to continue to be in the front run and to be innovative.
Are they just Turkish and Swiss companies?
Yes.
Do we have third party?
Usually they're only, I didn't check completely, but they should be only Swiss and Turkish. I mentioned education, very important in Switzerland, very briefly. We have those top Swiss institutions. The most famous one are probably ETH Zurich and EPFL. They are always among the very top universities in the world. They usually the only non-English speaking in the top 10 or in the top 20 of the big. But what is more important in Switzerland, because of this economic tissue of small and medium-sized company, is the training. And I know this university has also an important dimension of vocational training. In Switzerland, it's absolutely vital and very well considered. So it's a partnership between the private sector and the public sector. It's working well. We are probably among the 3 countries with the best vocational system in the world, interlocking very nicely the private sector and the education, but also enabling those students that have decided, or workers, young workers, that have decided with 15 to leave the public school. That's very young of age, but to take a bridge when they are 20, 21, and go to university if they wish to do so, and if, of course, they pass the exams. But it's not the end of the street going to vocational training. It might be, and it's a good job, but if the person decides later on to continue at the university level, he might or she might do so. It was mentioned roughly 130, 140,000 citizens in Switzerland of Turkish origin, or Turks, or bi-nationals, Swiss and Turks. We have very good experience, very good integration with them, and it works well. what we also try to do in this special year is to promote and to start a real process of return of cultural artifacts. This is very important in Turkey. A lot of nice, beautiful archaeological pieces have been stolen out of Turkey. They belong to you, they belong to your history, and we have a few in Switzerland, like any country, and we try now, we have an agreement that has been signed, and we try to be proactive in the return of those artifacts. And we have also, in the same spirit, decided after the earthquake of 2023 to support the restoration of the Hatay Archaeological Museum, because we think it's very important to connect, of course, everyone with your roots. And this is a little bit the program of those 2025, this 100 years of friendship, a series of concerts, a series of exhibitions, a series of events, a series of collaboration between the Switzerland and Turkey, between the JESDA and the Sabanci University, to work at different levels, to have also visits of our ministers. We have those 7 ministers I mentioned. One came already, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He came in April to open the exhibition. We will have our Minister for Economic Affairs coming in October to also meet his counterparts, but also open the Economic Forum, that is a big event in Istanbul in October. Voila, I think I have exhausted you, hopefully not too much, but exhausted the slides. But please, if there is any question, comments, I will be happy to listen to you and hopefully try to answer. Thank you very much.
Excellency, thank you very much
My pleasure.
for your
Thank you.
speech. Yes. Have you got any question? Yes.
They have another.
That you already replied.
Aha, okay.
They are satisfied.
I have.
You have, okay.
Because you were talking about science, and the power of science in Switzerland. And we are kind of familiar with that because whenever we have an advertisement in TV, if they start mainly Swiss scientists did find
Yeah.
it has a big impact.
Correct.
You already mentioned that, but how is the roots of that? How did it start? What's the main reason?
I think it starts by the fact, if we go back to history and not too long ago, Switzerland was indeed a poor country. We have no oil, no gold, no mines, really basically nothing. We had an important segment in the agriculture, of course, to nourish the population. We had a big emigration. Many Swiss people left Switzerland to go to the New World, to Brazil, to Argentina, to the US, but to all over the place. You have a lot of Swiss living abroad, sometimes, 5th, 6th, 7th generations. But until basically the 1900s, the Switzerland was a poor country, high immigration. And then the decision was taken that education was the key. Education, starting at the lowest level, read, write, and slowly but surely we had those increase in knowledge. But it has also been because, look, we are not affected because of neutrality, by the First and in particular by the Second World War. So we didn't have to reconstruct Switzerland. We could put our focus on education, science, innovation. We were also a country of destination for the most of and I go back to the very long history, starting with the 16th century, if I may. But Switzerland was always considered as a place where you could find security. We were very open to minorities, be it religious, Protestants, with the reform in the French Catholic. Many Protestants left and find a refuge in Switzerland. They brought with them a lot of innovation, a lot of new ideas, because they were very educated people that left France, came to Switzerland. But later on, political refugees, religious refugees, found some kind of possibilities to be in Switzerland and to prosper, to invest in Switzerland. And Nestlé, I mentioned Nestlé before, was created by a German that fled Germany in the 19th century because of religious reasons. The watch industry came to Switzerland because of those Huguenots, those Protestants, that came with the savoir-faire that they had in the Kingdom of France. And they had this savoir-faire because of the marines. The sea where the watches were used. To find your location, you needed those big watches, those big horloges. And they came with that. And of course, after we make it better. But we didn't invent the time, nor invented the watches. The bank, the same. They came a lot with the Huguenots, but also with Italians that left Italy in the 16th, 17th century. So this capacity over many centuries to have freedom of expression, freedom of thoughts were important. And many people with innovation, with new ideas, went to Switzerland to find some kind of protection. A lot of books were written by people that have nothing to do with Switzerland, but they were published in Switzerland because we authorized the publication of many books that were forbidden in other countries. So I think this position as well between those big countries of the time, France, Italy, Germany, Austria, were also influential to bring people that had new ideas, more modern ideas, that were maybe not welcome in those countries, but they find some kind of possibility to grow their idea, to implement their idea, and to turn their ideas into businesses sometimes.
Sounds like the history of the US. Is that why they are calling people who couldn't travel to US?
Yeah, I didn't think could be a possibility, but also because we were, again, being a country of small... Similar story, but also being a country of small dimension. The watch industry, for instance, is very telling. Many countries did not travel so much to export because they had a market, domestic market that was sufficient. In Switzerland, with the watch industry, particularly in the 17th, 18th century, 19th century, you needed to find new markets, rich people. Constantinople was a very good destination for the watchmakers. And they were producing maybe 10, 12 watches a year at that time, you know, but very expensive one. Only the kings, the sultans could buy those things. But in order to be bought, you need to be there to show the instruments, to show what you are selling, because you couldn't go on internet back then, of course. So what the business model was that one person, it was very often a family business, one brother, it was male, sorry ladies, but at that time it was more male business, but one person was working in his farm to make the watch, and the other was traveling the world to sell the watches. And we have found amazing correspondence between brothers. A person saying, okay, I'm in Brazil, I'm in Constantinople, I am in Beijing, I am in America, I'm trying to sell the watches. I met this person or that person, and this is good, but they need more this and less that, and this and that. So it was not only a description of the country, but also very much what was working and was what not working abroad, or new ideas. So they came across a lot of cross-fertilization of ideas that they brought back to Switzerland, and they converted into a new business model.
And this migration issue, is it the background of neutrality? What's the background of neutrality?
I think when you see Switzerland with this German...
Ethnic situation, I think.
Sorry?
Ethnic situation and neighbors.
Yeah, ethnic situation, neighbors, maybe wise people at one point as well, but because of this ethnic situation, when you have so many German and French and Italian speakers in one small space, it's very difficult, especially if you look back at Europe at that time. One example was during the First World War, despite the fact that Switzerland had already a very established neutrality, but some people in the German part of Switzerland had some kind of sympathy for the German Empire during the First World War. And this created tensions in Switzerland that were reduced thanks to neutrality, because otherwise, I don't know, we might have a line to one or the other, they would have created more tensions, could have been difficult.
We have held more Luxembourg cases similar to that one, but you are the only one who became neutral.
Yes. So it's both a request that came out of the Swiss people because of this diversity, ethnic diversity, language diversity. So both it was a bottom-up request by the Swiss politicians, but also the leaders of Europe back in 1515, but mainly already in 1647 with the Westphal Treaty, but certainly in 1815 at the Vienna Congress, they thought, okay, we need indeed a neutral country at the heart of Europe. And that geography would be useful. You never know, for humanitarian reasons in particular. We need a country that is able where everybody is able to go to make a peace treaty or to converge, to discuss about peace. So there were different reasons. So at one point, our requests and international ideas met, and this was definitely in Vienna, a little bit already in Westphal Treaty.
Okay. Now, is there any question? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we can take a photo with you.
With pleasure.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. I have a very few little, not gifts, no chocolate, sorry.